by the pub owners. And so we showed up in time for this and kind of got updated. And basically, there was just a hunger in Gulu for the gospel that you've never seen anywhere. Absolutely never seen. It was just incredible. You literally could not keep people from coming to Jesus. People stopping you on the street and wanting to hear the gospel. It's just something unlike I've ever seen.
We have a question. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So do they speak English?
Good question. British colony. So yeah, most of them do speak English. Language was very weird because they were a British colony, so a lot of people knew English. Then in northern Uganda, most people speak Luo. Southern Uganda, they speak Luganda. And then there's some Swahili mixed in there, so it was just kind of a mix, and kind of a hit or miss as to whether or not you could communicate with people.
They're educated in English, so if you have the money to go to school, then you've got some familiarity with English, but the range of that was really great. So we met a lot of people that spoke English very well, and then there was a few that didn't really know anything at all. And then yeah, depending on which language it was they actually spoke, you kind of figured that out first before you could get a translator. And the short-term teams did go around with translators. So everything that they had been doing prior to us getting there did have some help, and we just sort of jumped in with them.
Yeah, and so anyway, going back to the pub, so the day we got there, we found out that they'd been invited to do this. And so we ended up going to the pub with them. Just wanted to kind of share a couple stories about, just kind of give you an idea of the hunger that was going on there in Gulu. So we go to the pub, and it's kind of interesting. So we've been given permission by the owner to do a drama. They were going to provide a microphone to share the gospel by their invitation, actually. And so we get in there, and it's a completely different staff, and so they said no, they just nixed it. And it was just the guys at that time. And the guys, we just decided to go back outside because we couldn't talk to anybody. And while we were just standing out here hanging out with people, there was 3 people that came to the Lord, and 1 person that got healed of some physical pain in his stomach, just while we were standing out here for about an hour. And then out of nowhere, well, actually not out of nowhere, but the girls, when they found out that it got canceled, started praying.
We were back at the hotel, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
The girls were at the hotel.
They started praying, and we ended up having the DJ change his mind. He invited us in, and imagine a lot of you have probably seen that Lifehouse Everything skit. If you haven't, don't worry about it, but that's a skit we ended up doing. And the reaction is pretty amazing, really, because literally there are prostitutes right over here, on the other side of this wall doing their business. There's business getting arranged back over here, people getting drunk. I mean, it's a bar. And it was just interesting how, if you've seen the skit, it's about a girl that's struggling with all these different influences and temptations, and then Jesus blows them all out of the water. And it was interesting to see all these girls and guys with these beers just, yeah, cheering for all this sin, until they saw what Jesus did, and the place went dead silent.
And Jesus comes in and fights for her too. There's an actual fight.
Yeah. And I think to me one of the most impactful things about that night was, while we're watching all this, they actually got thunderous applause as a result of it. And then a guy named Andrew started sharing the gospel just on stage, and this big old Ugandan guy just comes back, falls on my neck, hugging me, just squeezing me, and just goes, I have so many problems in my life. I want to be saved. I need Jesus. I need to be saved. Which is a good place to start. So that's where we started. And but it was just so incredible to see these kind of and that was, I spent the rest of the time with him, but it was just so incredible to see these kind of interactions happening in the darkest place in town. And that was just one of the things that really blew us out of the water, is we were completely comfortable there. I mean, it felt like the most normal thing in the world, being in such a dark place and just sharing the light of the gospel, sharing the light of who Jesus was. And man, were they hungry. Man, were they hungry to see it. And you had it.
Well, the girls, we had stayed back at the hotel while the guys were watching the World Cup and praying for people and talking, making connections at the pub that night. And then the girls, after we prayed and everything, and we finally got the go-ahead to do the performance, we all jumped into a van, went down to the pub, and we were there kind of standing and watching the performance to also then, be on the lookout to talk to people afterwards and pray with them, which was really difficult to do, in all honesty, because it was so loud of an environment, just being a bar, and you just really couldn't hold a good conversation with someone. One thing that happened that was kind of significant for me that night, because we weren't there for very long, was one, I was with a friend and she was introducing me to some of the prostitutes that she had been meeting with during the daytime all through the previous week, and they've been having discipleship lessons and just sharing the Lord with them. So she was introducing me to them, and this one girl, this one prostitute, came out of nowhere and just like wrapped her arms around me, same way that that guy did with Scott, and just like held me. And I wasn't really sure what was going on and who she was and all this stuff, and so she just gave me like this biggest hug, and I hugged her back, and then she was gone, like kind of disappeared, and we left. And so the next day, all the teams, all the short-term teams, went out back into the city and started meeting with people that they had come to the Lord. And so they were having discipleship lessons and talking with people. So we went out in groups of 2s and 3s, and I went with this one girl back to the pub in the afternoon with the intention to go back and meet with some of these prostitutes. And so we did get a translator and spent a good deal of our time praying with her and teaching her how to pray and listen to the Lord's voice, because she was a Christian. She came from a village that was almost entirely Muslim. Her entire family is Muslim. And she and her sister are the only 2 believers who've been believers for about 2 years. And so they're largely ostracized from their family and their village. And she just wants to serve the Lord. And so when we went to her village in her hut and said, hey, could you translate for us? She said, if it's for the Lord, I'll go. And so she walked all the way back to the pub with us, and we had to wait for a real long time to get back and talk to the girls. And while we were waiting, it was so hard because there are new girls coming into the pub. Like, there are pimps that are bringing in new girls, and they've got suitcases, and they're just rolling them on in the back, and just seeing that cycle of sin just right in front of you. But anyway, we were waiting, and we finally went back into the brothel, into the back room where the girls live and work. And like Scott said, it was really, I think the most impacting thing for me was that it was just so natural. Like, I didn't feel strange about just walking in the back of a brothel and sitting down in this room and talking to some prostitutes and praying with them. Like, it was just another place. It was just another hallway. It was just another room. And so we sat down and started listening to them, some of their hopes and fears, and they'd heard the gospel before, and so we were just kind of talking to them about, about Jesus. What were they thinking? How had he talked to them? And they were just sharing so much of their fears. Like, we want to trust the Lord. We do trust him a little bit, but we just have these huge things. Like, we want to get out of prostitution. We want other things for our lives, but we're not sure if he can take us there. And so, we spent about 2 hours over there talking to them and trying to encourage them that some of the things that came up were, like Jesus leaves the fold of the 99 and goes after the one, and like his heart is after you and you and you. There are 4 of them, and again, he's not going to let up. and so we talked, we prayed, we spent a little bit of time teaching them how to pray and how to listen to the Lord's voice so that they could do that for themselves. And it was a really encouraging time for all of us involved. And then we left about 2 hours later, and I know some of the other short-term teams were going back to the pub to follow up with these women. So I guess prayer note on the side of that is I haven't heard anything yet. Like, we kind of left Gulu and everything. It's just like in the Lord's hands. But I know for me, all the people that we talked with during the day, and especially those 4 women there at the pub, have just been continually on my heart, and just knowing that the Lord's going to be faithful to complete the good work that He's started in them. So be praying for them as things are going on.
Yeah. And anyway, just to kind of wrap up with Gulu, so we spent a couple days there, and like I said, the most amazing thing to us was it was just such a clear picture of the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. I mean, the fields are ripe for the harvest. If you don't believe that, trust me, it's out there. The most clear example I saw of that was actually the following day after the pub. I was walking down the street with a local guy, and he was about 18 to 20 years old in university. And there were about 10 of his friends hanging out under a tree, 18, 20-year-old guys. And these guys saw us and actually said, hey, you, come, we want to hear what you have to say.